Motorcycle versus scooter, which is right for you? I want to go over some of the pros and cons from my experience having ridden both motorcycles and scooters. So jumping right into it, the first thing is, do you need a license or not? So this all depends on the size of the motor. And this is for the United States I'm talking about. If you're riding a scooter under 50 cc's, you do not require a Class M motorcycle license. But anything over 50 cc's, regardless if it's a motorcycle or a scooter, will require getting a Class M motorcycle license. The good thing about taking the motorcycle class is you actually get a premium reduction for your cost for your motorcycle insurance. So taking that 2 or 3 day course, the motorcycle safety course, is great, not only just to learn the fundamentals and the basics, but you also save some money there every year for your insurance. So definitely recommend taking that motorcycle safety class. The next thing comparing motorcycles and scooters is the transmission. So 99% of motorcycles will require shifting. It's a manual transmission, so you have to engage the clutch with your left hand and you have to shift with your left foot. Compared to with a scooter, most of them use a CVT, a continuously variable transmission, which is basically an automatic transmission, and all you have to do is crank on the throttle and you're off to the races. So I know for some folks, especially in the United States, most people drive automatic cars, so it can seem like a daunting task trying to learn how to shift. But really, you can pick it up pretty quickly, especially if you take that motorcycle safety class. You can learn the basics, learn how to shift properly, how to find the friction zone with the clutch. And then honestly, once you learn that, there's nothing more fun. It's so fun shifting gears and feeling that power immediately. Especially you come out of a beautiful twisting turn, you shift up in perfect timing, roll on that throttle, and you're boosted off. It's just an amazing feeling. So, I think learning how to shift on a motorcycle is something that's life-changing, if you will. You'll just love it, all right? But to each their own, okay? As far as top speed, this definitely goes to motorcycles. Bigger motors, we can handle highway speeds. Typically, a 150cc motor is legally allowed to ride on the highway. So if you have a 150cc scooter, you technically could go on the highway. And I've done it here and there just for a few exits, but I wouldn't recommend it. If we're going to be touring, if we're going to be doing a lot of highway riding, definitely the motorcycle wins on this one. As far as city riding, though, nothing's easier than being on a scooter. You can just at a stoplight, you can relax both your hands. You don't have to put the bike in neutral or whatnot. You can just let your left hand off, your right hand off, and just wait for the light to turn green and rip the throttle. Sometimes, in city riding, especially with a lot of traffic, on a motorcycle, your left hand, your clutch hand, is gonna get pretty sore from engaging the clutch constantly. And then the clutch hand tends to get a little tired, and you don't want to just keep putting it in neutral or whatnot. You could, but I feel like in the city, the scooter wins 100% of the time. Okay. As far as acceleration, some of these scooters with the higher CCs, those things you can rip them right off the line. My goodness. I know it comes down to the rider, but having ridden right now a 150cc scooter versus I had like a 250cc motorcycle, to get up to 40, I would have to shift, twice, perhaps on the motorcycle, whereas on the scooter, I'm just ripping it full throttle and I'm blasted off. So, and like I said, it depends on the rider, but acceleration, especially on higher cc motorcycles, you're gonna be a freaking rocket. But really, I'd say they're both a win. On some of these faster scooters, you can really rip it off the line. So both are really good there. As far as handling, it goes to motorcycles for sure. If we're talking about high-speed cornering and the twisties in the canyon, you feel so planted and secure on a motorcycle. A lot of that comes down to tire width and tire size. Obviously, on a scooter, we have smaller tires, but typically scooter tires are around like uh, 10 to 12 inches in diameter, whereas motorcycles are 16, 17 and larger, around there. So it's just more rubber on the pavement, more lean angle on the motorcycles. You feel much more safe and secure blasting through those canyons than I would on a scooter. Um, as far as miles per gallon, though, yeah, scooter wins every time. My 150cc scooter gets around 90 or so miles per gallon, and that's mostly in the city, but going pretty fast too. Opening up the taps. Whereas a motorcycle, I typically get around 50 or so, which is still great. 50 miles per gallon on the motorcycle is fine. But then it also comes down to fuel capacity. Typically, motorcycles have around 3 to 4 gallon tank. Sometimes if they're cruisers, touring bikes, you can get upwards of 5 and 6 gallons perhaps. Whereas the scooter has much smaller fuel capacity. That's because they get such great MPGs. My scooter, my 150cc scooter, has about a 1.6 gallon tank, but it gets 100 miles per gallon. All right. Whereas my motorcycle has a 4.5 gallon tank and gets 50 miles per gallon. So you can do the math there. But really, you're going to save a lot of money if we're just doing scooter riding in the city. You can really put that dollar to use there. As far as storage space, the scooter's excellent. It's got a big under the seat storage where you can put your helmet or your half lid, and it's got some good attachments for the back. You can put a rack back there with a compartment. As far as motorcycle storage, you have to get creative sometimes. A lot of straps to put your bag in. If you have a sissy bar, you can attach things to that as well. You can also get hard or soft saddle bags for the sides. But just starting off from the basic, I think the scooters typically are more convenient with storage space. But you can definitely make it work for both. It just costs a pretty penny to add on a few attachments on your motorcycle. But you can make it work. As far as appearance, to each their own. I love the look of both. I personally love the look of classic Italian scooters, as well as kind of rugged, kind of enduro-looking scooters. And the same thing with motorcycles. I love a good sport bike. Look, it just looks like it's moving fast even when it's staying still. But I also love the look of a chopper with the handlebars up, the ape hangers, the big sissy bar, the king and queen seat. Really comes down to your personal preference. But I love the appearance of both. You could have that badass look on the motorcycle, or a cool leisurely look on the scooter, or you could make it whatever you wanted to. As far as customization, it really depends on the make and model, but I think, in my opinion, motorcycles have a much bigger aftermarket availability. You can switch up basically everything on your bike to make it your own. So the customization market, I think it goes to motorcycles. As far as the exhaust, though, I find exhaust sounds are great. I like the deep throaty exhaust. You rip on the throttle, it makes you feel amazing. But it also helps increase safety. You want cars to be able to hear you before they see you, because 99% of the time they're not going to even see you, and that's how a lot of accidents happen. But if they hear you rumbling along behind them, they're gonna keep their eyes in the rearview mirror and they're gonna see you come by. And it almost kind of makes them a little intimidated sometimes. But it's really good to find a nice sounding exhaust, not just because it sounds cool, but for safety. And that brings me to my next point. Being on two wheels, sometimes regardless of how good of a rider you are, you always have to be looking out for everyone around you. Cars, people are on their phones, they're busy, they're listening to the radio too loud. So you need to make it a point to look out for yourself. You need to give yourself plenty of room in front of you, behind you, to the side of you, to make sure that you give yourself buffer zone for when other people make mistakes. Okay. So, one wreck on two wheels could be your last one, if you know what I'm saying. So it's a high risk, high reward thing being on two wheels, especially when you're going faster. But that's part of it, you know. You get the highs, you can get the lows, lows. So really, if you're thinking about getting a bike, or if you're a rider, you know, you have to take that into consideration. You know, one wreck could be it all. But if you're safe, you can really mitigate those risks. One thing is the weight. Motorcycles typically around 300 pounds and upwards. I'm talking about like a small motorcycle. They can go up to, I don't know, 5, 6, 700, 800 pounds. You know, they get pretty big, those baggers. When you start riding, you want to definitely, you know, put the bike between your legs, just stand up, have the motor off, and just feel the weight between your legs. Move it a little left, move it a little right, and you'll see, oh, is this something I can handle? Especially at low speeds, that's when you feel the weight. If you're trying to reverse your bike, pushing it through a lot at slow speeds, you know, that's when you'll feel the weight. Once you get moving, you don't feel it too much. Maybe in the twisties a little bit. But yeah, the scooters are much smaller, much lighter. They're super flickable, you know, in parking lots or in the city riding. So definitely scooters are they win in this category. As far as price, same thing. Scooters are a smaller machine. Typically, they cost way less, you know, around $2, $3, $4,000. Whereas motorcycles, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10, it can be up to 20. You know, those expensive Harleys, or like a Kawasaki H2 for, you gotta think, around $30,000. But yeah, if you're willing to spend the money on a fun toy, then hey, do it. And then maintenance, you know, both they require like yearly oil changes, usually around like 5,000 miles or so. They recommend, and same thing with the tires. You know, they say you want to around 5,000 miles switch out the tires. Typically, the rear tire tends to burn out faster than the front tire. But I always recommend, if you're going to get the rear one switched up, might as well get the front one as well, so the tread's equal on both. But to each their own. Typically, try to aim for around 5,000 miles or so to switch up these tires. I've stretched it to around 10,000 sometimes, but then, when it rains, you want to make sure you have the best grip possible. So yeah, these are just some of the pros and cons through my experience that I've had. And what it comes down to at the end of the day is what you're going to be using it for. If you're going to be door dashing on around the city, definitely get a scooter. If you want to tour the country and go cross country or wherever, you hit up the twisties in the canyons, lean towards a motorcycle for sure. But really, what I recommend is just get both. That way, you can do it all. All right. Well, if this video is helpful at all, please give me a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and rock on. Bye now.